Hi, I'm Jacob, and this is my review of Darklight by the Sidepieces. First of all, nothing on here is as bad as the album cover. I get that it's sort of a thing now to have a purposely bad album cover in underground hip hop. This one's just lazy. We're just taking pictures of ourselves in our rooms with random fits on. The album is very much not lazy though. It's obvious they put a lot of effort and intention into the production. They had a similar project gain traction last year, but I didn't end up listening to it, so this was my first time listening to anything by them. Also, I want to mention that I've heard people claim these guys are Peggy copycats. That's wrong and a little ignorant. You can hear some influences from bigger artists, but they do have their own sound. The most obvious influence for me though is on track 1. There's a lighter version of the rapping Injury Reserve does. There's lots of potential on this track based on the first 15 seconds. I like the glitchy electronic sampling and stuff, but the beat turns boring when the hook hits. I specifically don't like the guitar sampling. Also, I do think the third verse is clearly a step down from the first two. Track 2 is a nice interlude. There's pretty piano. I love the drums. I think that's a wind chime, which is a cool idea. The first part of Everyday Fishing is better than track 1 in pretty much every way. There's great energy from the verses and beat, but the song is completely kneecapped halfway through. The keyboard switches to either an accordion or horns, I'm not sure which would be fine. But the hook is lame, it's a complete dud. There is a pretty outro though. Track 4 is almost an instrumental track. There's slight talking over an okay beat. There's an ambient sounding keyboard going between two chords most of the song. There's a little energy from the drums, but it's still not interesting. For treehouse music, I'm not messing with the lazy delivery. I also think this is the most boring beat so far. Ratchet has a punchy, cute, glitchy beat. I think it has the best verses so far. For track 7, there's some bassy instrument that's paired with the kick, and it keeps going and I think it ruins the song almost. It sounds like there's a phone buzzing in my headphones. For Drop a Couple, you can tell within 5 seconds that this song is the best so far. There's a pretty and futuristic beat. The percussion is buzzing and really lively. There's a very good verse. And then Listen has the best hook so far. This has been stuck in my head for the past couple days. But other than the hook, there's not a lot here. For Donnie Darko, I think this is actually a very good low-key track. For most of the album, some of the vocals have been boring and not very interesting to listen to. This beat is very soft and it complements the track a lot. The verses feel very passionate. Track 11 is pretty good. It's like a sad, mournful ambient song for the first half. The video game stuff sounding in the back half is also very good. For Able to Like, he samples a typical elevator music sound and talks over it. The last 30 seconds of instrumental is pretty good. Rock Song is definitely my favorite. There's repetitive cymbals mixed very high over melancholic, sustained synths and humming. I think this makes for the best track yet. Bomb Mix is almost just as good. The song structure reminds me of Shoo Shoo. I don't know what I'm hearing for the first half. Maybe it's xylophones or wind chimes or something, but it's very pretty. The second half of the song has a melody that's softly hummed, and it's by far the best melody on this so far. It leads into a blast of beautiful overlapping instrumentation, and the percussion production sounds ripped out of something from Soundtracks for the Blind. This lasts roughly 30 seconds and leads into a glitchy outro. I Love You is beautiful, pretty much everything about it. The saxophone, the synth, something that sounds like a whale in the background. I'm not sure what to think about Run Up Freestyle. There's a violin, an acoustic guitar, some wind instrument. I don't really think it goes well with the auto-tuned vocals, but the parts hold their own so well that I think it's still a good track. The first half of Mish is just another ambient track, which so far have been pretty good, but the second half has a goated melody, just like track 14, but probably even better. Also has a killer synth driving the rhythm. In My Zone has a cool, steamy, factory-sounding rhythm for the first part. The vocals and melody aren't something to look twice at, though. And the second part is back to the ambient stuff, and it's fine. Track 19 is another ambient track, and at this point, there's enough ambient in here to address, is it just are we supposed to skip over it? Or is it just interludes to the hip-hop tracks? I'd say that low-key, they're just as good as the hip-hop tracks on here. These guys are as good at ambient. I'd say they're obviously better than Andre 3000, and they're obviously not as good as Global Communication, OPN, Tim Hecker, Stars of the Lid. They're somewhere in the middle, okay? Probably dead in the middle. I think the hip-hop stuff on here is roughly as good as the ambient stuff on there, and I think they're both good. Track 20 is ambient for the first couple minutes. Then it turns into a really, probably the best track for 2 minutes. There's a saxophone, R&B vocals enter, they steal the show and everything. It switches back to ambient until halfway through, or actually about the halfway mark until for 3 minutes, okay? and then it turns into a very good sound collage track for the last 3 minutes. It's a very pretty second half. So overall, most of the time when they want to incorporate autotune at all, they are butchering the song. There was only a few times off this record that I loved the inclusion of the vocals, and it's most notably on track 14 and 17, and both of those times, they are much softer on messing with the vocal production.